This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Berges.
Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you.
Hi, my name is Reginald Harvey, and I'm a wellness champion. I just published the medical memoir Anatomy of a Patient to inspire those affected directly or indirectly by a life-threatening diagnosis. Do you know or have a family member or dear friend who is suffering from catastrophic illness or debilitating disability? This is a conversation that few people are willing to have, and I want to have it with you. You can hear me on Live Your True Life Perspectives with Ashley Berges. For more information, go to reggieharvey.net.
Welcome back, friends. Ashley Berges here today. And today I want to talk about on this live stream, I want to talk about guilt, shame, fear, and comparison. And a lot of us are dealing with this on a daily basis. We're going through it on a daily basis. We're thinking about all this stuff on a daily basis. And it's making life a lot more stressful. We all know that life can be extremely stressful and overwhelming, especially when our mind is going a million miles an hour. And it's difficult enough to understand a situation or overcome a struggle, especially when we have all this stuff on our mind, right? So we have guilt, we have shame, fear, and also many times in our life, I think this goes for a lot of us. I know that I've dealt with it on multiple occasions. You begin to compare your life to other people's lives around you. And that can be overwhelming because you see their life and you see how they're doing and you see what you see from the outside. And usually you begin to beat yourself up for what you haven't accomplished, what you haven't done, what they have and you don't, and the list goes on. And we begin to feel really sad about where we are, or we begin to feel overwhelmed about what we have created in our life or what we haven't created in our life. And for many of us, we can feel as though we're behind the 8 ball, and we can get overwhelmed with that and overwhelmed with choices that we may have made that we find that weren't maybe the best of choices. And there's a video coming out here soon that we just shot the other day on being able to recognize kind of the choices we made, the self-sabotaging choices. And a lot of us see the self-sabotaging choices when we do see it, and we feel really bad. Like we start rectifying things, we start changing our life, but yet we feel really bad about the choices we've made, right? Because we feel like we screwed up, or we didn't do what we could do, or we could have done so many different things in our life and we didn't. But you can't go through an enlightening or an enlightenment period without seeing these situations. And that's what's so important to recognize, is a lot of us feel bad about choices we've made. Maybe we didn't do great in school and we had to go back and finish up, or maybe we didn't have that family, or maybe we didn't get married yet, or maybe, we went into a dead-end career, or maybe we chose something we didn't want to, and now we're having to kind of dig out of that. And we're seeing how other people started, it seems like, right on doing exactly what they needed to do, and it seems like they're so much farther ahead of the game. And so that's what the video is. It's coming out here soon. I think you'll really like it. I think it's very powerful for anybody that hasn't had the picture perfect life, and I think that's most of us. And I think it also gives credence back to the fact that just because it's not perfect doesn't mean that we're not on the right path, right? I feel that we have to screw up. And I feel like we have to make choices to actually see our virtue and our reality. I used to feel bad, and now I feel like it made me who I am today. Even though there's sometimes, I mean, we all get into the pity parties and we all get sad and we all get a little overwhelmed. So it's okay to sometimes feel sad. It's okay to sometimes feel this way. But in today's video, I want to offer you the tools and techniques for overcoming what I consider to be the mind chaos, right? And getting back into living your true life, because that's essentially what we're trying to do, right? And maybe some of you might say, well, you know what? I don't think I've ever been living my true life. And that's okay. Because that's okay. Because there's always time. The best time is now. I mean, time is of the essence, right? But we have to make the most out of the present moment. And so that directly reflects on today's conversation as well, because we can't be in shame and guilt and fear and comparison when we're in the moment. If I'm being super mindful, meaning like, am I getting rid of all the noise in my mind, I don't have the ability to have noise to think about what I don't have, what I haven't accomplished, what I've screwed up on, or what everybody else is doing better than me. Okay? And this is a really hard thing to it's not, well, no, I take that back. It takes consistency and effort to make this a reality. It's not hard. It's really not that challenging. It takes consistency and effort, consistency and effort, consistency and effort. And why it does is that we have to retrain ourselves and our brain to stop this game that is playing with us. Because I don't know about y'all, but anytime that I've had a difficult decision to make or something to overcome in my life, the last thing I need is a bunch of emotions getting in my way that's telling me that I can't do it, or I'm never going to do it, or I'm going to be non-successful, or everybody else is smarter than me. I don't need that, right? That's not going to help me to live my true life. That's not even going to help me to make a good decision in the moment, because I'm going to be freaked out, scared, overwhelmed, worried. I'm going to be in a dysfunctional state, right? Worry that I'm going to make the wrong decision because I'm questioning my very core of my being, and I am offsetting the reality of the situation because I am in this emotional funk. And that's what we're talking about. And many of you are living that right now. I mean, I've been there. I understand. And it's not that I don't ever go back into that. It's not like I've graduated permanently in my lifetime. But I've worked on really limiting it down to a very small amount of my time in that space. Because I found that being in the space of guilt and shame and fear and comparison, well, it makes me sad. And what I mean by makes me sad, it makes me feel inept. It makes me feel like I am unable to do anything right. It makes me feel as though life is passing me by. It makes me feel like sad about situations and circumstances. And it makes me feel as though it's not even worth doing what I'm trying to do. Well, I might as well not even do it because somebody else is going to do it better, or somebody's going to find fault with it, or what have you. And so definitely it's something that we want to talk about in today's show. So any of you that are dealing with this, I want you to stick around, because this is going to be some powerful stuff. Okay, we're going to be talking about some powerful stuff tonight. And we tried to move it back so that we could get it at a good time tonight so everybody can kind of connect. I know some of y'all out of this country are probably a little like, hey, this is a little too late. Some of you, perfect timing, some of it too early. We're trying the best here to try to make it as much on a good time as possible. It will fluctuate, and I appreciate everybody that allowed this show to be done today. Rodrigo is actually running the show, so we're all giving a heads up to Rod, so we appreciate that. So when I return, I'm going to be talking about how to slow down the guilt and the shame and the fear and the comparison to other people, so that we can start living the life that we should live and the life that's best for us to live. So stay tuned, because myself, Ashley Berges, will be back this time in 2 shakes. You can't miss the newest show, The Artist Perspective, sponsored by Art for Your Cause. To learn more about Art for Your Cause, go to artforyourcause.com. Art for Your Cause helps artists and charities by bringing artists and their work and charities together to be able to raise money for your favorite charities while still paying the artists for their work. To learn more about the artist perspective, go to theartistperspective.tv and watch our first episode featuring world-renowned photographer Jeremy Locke. Hey there, friends. I'm glad you're catching the live broadcast of Live Your True Life Perspectives. I've created my very own Patreon page. You can go to Patreon and you can check out my page. The link is right here. It's an amazing platform because I'm able to offer more stuff there, different stuff than I am on the Live Your True Life program, as well as on my YouTube channel. You've probably seen my YouTube channel. We put up new video content every week. And we have a lot of great content on there. But on the Patreon page, I'm able to go a step further. I'm offering group coaching sessions, private coaching sessions, as well as access to exclusive content, like the Celebrity Perspective, Season 1. I won a Telly Award for that this year. You can watch all episodes right here on Patreon. I'm offering you the exclusive chance to come on the radio with me, to be live on Live Your True Life Perspectives, nationally syndicated radio show, to talk about yourself, to talk about your amazing life, and to inspire the Live Your True Life listeners. When you become a member of my Patreon page, you are directly supporting me to help other people to live their true life. I look forward to seeing you on Patreon. Let's inspire one another. Welcome back, friends. Ashley Berges here on the live stream. And I'm talking about guilt, shame, fear, and comparison. Many of us are dealing with this on a constant basis, but many of us might not even actually be aware of it. Some of us are hyper and very much self-aware, but we just don't know how to stop. So for all you out there that say, I don't really think I have that issue, I don't think I have that issue, well, I want you to start thinking about how often the mental record continues in your head, okay? Most of us aren't even aware of it. We're so used to the chatter that we don't even realize it's really there. And so we have to be aware of the fact that it does exist. And some of us don't hear the chatter, but we make choices that aren't right for us. So we'll make a choice that's not to the highest good for our life based on the thoughts that we have in our head or based on the theories and feelings that we have about ourselves. But I think most of you at this time know, okay, I do carry this with me. I have guilt for things that I've done. And many of us, so let's talk about guilt. Many of us have guilt for things that we've done or haven't done based on the way that we were raised, right? Based on upbringing and situation. So it's not because we're guilty because we're bad people. It's because we're guilty because we were trained, we were raised or trained to do a certain thing or believe a certain way or act a certain way. So let's just say that we came from a certain environment. We're extremely codependent. And we're constantly taking care of other people, and we've done that our whole life, okay? Many of you fall into that category. If you stop taking care of everybody that comes to you and you actually put your foot down and decide not to do it, or you know that you have other things that you need to do, right? Or you know that it's not the right time for you. For the first time, you've got to put yourself first, and the list goes on. You're going to feel guilty because you didn't do it, even though you didn't need to do it in the first place, right? Okay, so the other day I had a friend of mine, a lady needed to borrow some money, and she just didn't have the money. But she's always been there for other people and always helped other people, and she felt extremely bad about it. And I said, you don't have it financially to give right now, so why do you feel bad? Well, I've always done it. And I think many people fall into this trap. It's what you've always done. It's the way that you've been trained. But a lot of the things that we've always done are not necessarily good for us to do. And I want you to really think about that, because years ago when I did a lot of this work and I took some time off and I really got to know who I am, I guess it's been about, 20 years ago, I learned so much about my life, but I learned a lot about what I had been doing, what I had been doing in my life, what was mainstream, what was my reality, what was my choices. And I began to realize that a lot of my choices were not good for me. They were helpful for other people. They impacted other people, but they impacted me usually in a negative way. And I'm not saying that I didn't feel good about helping other people, but somehow or not, it was like a deficit. Like by helping them, I fell into financial situations, problems in my life. By helping them, instead of me doing what I needed to do, I was helping them do something, and so I wasn't really following up with my own life and taking care of my own self, and I was putting myself on the back burner. So there's lots of different situations where many of us feel that way. But we feel the guilt, and the guilt feels really real, even though the guilt is basically self-created from a learning situation. So we've learned it over a period of time, we've practiced it over a period of time, and so we feel guilty. We feel guilty for not doing what we always do. And so this is a really big deal that we have to really think about, because many of us are carrying this self-proclaimed guilt that all it's doing is really hurting us. It's taking us off our purpose. It's taking us off where we need to be at, and we're putting ourselves last, right? So guilt is something that I want you to look at, and guilt is a very empty feeling. I find that guilt is a very empty feeling, and many of you know that guilt, when you're having guilt, so let's say like something happens and you feel guilty about not doing something, right? And so you feel guilty about it, and how does that guilt look? I mean, does guilt have a look to you? Because to me, guilt always seemed almost like smoky, like a cloudy, smoky vision of really nothing. It was very opaque, and there was nothing in between me and the guilt. So there was nothing solid. And so the image wasn't really, there was no image. I had a feeling, right? I had like a gut feeling, like I felt bad, or I felt sick to my stomach, or I felt just, ugh. So I feel like guilt has a feeling, but it doesn't really follow up with any other information, and it doesn't have any other factual evidence to back it. Guilt to me is a very empty emotion. And guilt to me is usually self-created, right? Because we have to create the guilt. Because I think, when people talk about guilt, I mean, there's certain things that you should feel guilty for. But I believe that in the community that I am speaking to, in our community, I am not talking or addressing those. I think most of it that I'm addressing is the fact that we feel guilty. And what I was meaning by feeling guilt that we should feel guilty would be like if you hurt somebody, or you killed somebody, or you hurt an animal. Those are things that you should feel guilty for. But I know that in our group here, that's not even something we have to talk about, right? We're talking about the guilt that we feel because we haven't done something that we always done, and a lot of you feel guilt when you actually begin to stand up for yourself. A lot of you feel guilt when you begin to create boundaries in your life, when you begin to say no, when you begin to not take the phone call all the time, or when you begin to put your foot down, or when you finally say, no, I don't feel like that's what I want to do, or you just say no. And it's so hard for us to say no more often than not. And I know some of you say, well, I don't know how to say no, so I just say, well, I can't do it now, but I'll get back to you and, I'll figure this out, instead of just saying how you feel. And I know that some of you also, you can't say no, and so you go through the motions and you do it, and you feel even horrible, more horrible later on. So somebody asks you to go eat with them. It's somebody that you feel is not your friend, has not had your back, has even maybe talked behind your back, does not deserve your friendship, but you still go to lunch with them, and you don't want to go the whole time. You feel horrible about being there, but you could never say no. Right? How many of us feel that way? And then what happens with that? We have guilt, we have actual personal guilt that we put ourselves through the situation for how many hours? And we feel shame. So that's the second one we're talking about. We feel shame because we feel shameful that we couldn't stand up for ourselves and say how we feel. And do you see how this stuff starts to stack upon itself? Right? So it's like you get this, you get the guilt, and then you get the shame, and then you have to have that fear, and we'll talk more about fear in a second. But shame is an interesting thing too, because shame is one of those empty emotions again, but I believe that shame is usually associated with what we don't have, what we feel like we should have had, who we feel like we should be, and who we feel like we're not. I feel like shame is also, feeling bad about things that we have done in our life and not forgiving ourselves for it, not forgiving ourselves for what we've gone through. Many of you have gone through so much turmoil and agony in your life, but you've never once looked at yourself and really started understanding what makes you tick, right? Because we're human beings. And like I say, we come in this world on our own and we leave on our own. And with that being said, the reason why I say that all the time, we come in on this world on our own, we leave on our own, is because this relationship with ourselves is the most important relationship that we can have. That's why we don't come in with a group of people. That's why we're not on a party barge or, on an RV with a bunch of people we show up at. No, we come in on our own. And it means that we are independent enough and we are important enough to show up on our own. And it means that we need to get to know who we are before we leave, right? So the shame thing takes us away from who we are. Shame is the one thing that can really crumble you down to the core, because it makes you question your validity. It makes you question everything that you've done. It makes you question yourself at the core. It makes you question your values, your morals, your beliefs. And it literally can spiral out of control. So when we return, we're talking more about shame, more about fear, and more about comparison. And then later on, I'm going to explain how to stop this cycle, and how to move on with your life. So stay tuned, because myself, Ashley Berges, will be back on this live stream in 2 shakes.
Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you.
Is there something impacting your relationship? Even though the years when your kids are small is a beautiful time of life filled with magical moments, it can also be a time when couples struggle to stay connected. After all, your kids need a lot of your time, but so does your business or your career. And making time for self-care is hard, so your health and well-being suffers. And date night? Well, that seems like a distant dream. So instead of days filled with loving connection, there are moments of tension, stress, and worry. But what if there was help to get you through these years? A solution built with young parents in mind. One with no difficult concepts to master. One that's fun and gives immediate results, and fits seamlessly into your schedule no matter how busy you get. A solution to make sure you stay connected. We're offering you support to keep your connection strong. The Connection app for couples. Click the link below to learn more. We're making together better so your moments stay magical.
Hey there, friends. Glad to be back today. And today we've been talking about guilt, shame, fear, and comparison. Right before the break, I've been talking about shame and how shame can become a part of that mental record that gets in the way of us making the right decision, that makes us struggle, and makes us question ourselves. And you know, when I was looking up shame, and it's when people feel shame, the focus of their evaluation is on the self or identity. Shame is a self-punishment, acknowledgement of something gone wrong. It is associated with mental undoing. Okay? So this is a very interesting thing because shame and ashamed, right? And so it's that negative evaluation of self. It's the feelings of distress, it's mistrust, it's feeling worthlessness, it's feeling powerlessness, and the list goes on. So when we have shame, right, and we're feeling worthless and we're feeling powerless, how are we going to make a good decision? How are we going to create the reality that we want if we're feeling powerless and worthlessness? We're not. Okay? Anytime that I'm having a tough day and I'm questioning my validity, I know that it's not a good day to make any choices about my life. Okay? About things that really have, I'm not talking about what salad dressing I'm going to have, but I'm saying when it's a big thing, I really have to check myself if I'm having questioning thoughts of self-doubt. Because one, that means that I am in my head. Two, it means that I'm in the thinking mind. So we have the thinking mind, right, versus the mindful mind. If anybody's read my latest book, The 10-Day Challenge to Live Your True Life, Chapter 3 is the mindful mind versus the thinking mind. And so people talk about mindfulness all the time, right, being in the mindful mind. The thinking mind is quite the opposite, right? That's us stuck in our thoughts, that whirlwind of thoughts and emotion, right? Because we get stuck in those thoughts create emotion and feeling. Because when I have guilt, I feel guilt. I don't see guilt. I try to see it, it's a smoke screen. When I feel shame, I feel inadequate. I don't really see shame, but I make really bad choices if I feel like powerless, worthlessness, that kind of thing, right? When I feel guilt, I make really poor choices. And I'm sure you'd have to agree with that as well, because when we're in this mind chaos and we have all these thoughts and feelings going on, we can't be right on with what we need to choose. Instead, because of that mental record, we make choices that aren't good for us. You know, another thing is that fear. When we have guilt and we have shame, we have fear, right? Because fear, we're scared because we're not seeing things clearly. We're scared because we feel inadequate. We're scared and we're fearful because we don't know how things are going to change. We are overwhelmed. We feel as though we are backed into a corner and we do not have the appropriate information or knowledge or information or power to make changes. When we feel powerless, we feel fear, right? I mean, think about it. Last time you saw the news and something really scared you and you saw it and you go, oh my God, you felt fear, right? And you felt powerless to make a change. You didn't even know how to stand up for it. You see what I'm saying? It's the same thing that happens in our own life, but it doesn't have to be watching the news. It's that we can feel powerless to things that happen to us. We can feel overwhelmed by what happens to us. We can feel overwhelmed, and it can be extremely challenging to process that fear and to begin to let it go. And fear is one of those things that once you go down the path of fear, it's a fight or flight mode all the time. And I don't know about you, but any times that you normally make choices in a fight or flight mode, it's usually not the right choice. It hasn't been thought through properly. It was a quick choice, and it was something that you'll probably end up regretting or being unhappy with later on down the road. It's like making any snap decision. Probably something you should have thought over, but unfortunately, because you were in a state of fear, some of you might consider that to be even PTSD. Maybe you were in a state of PTSD based on this guilt and shame and this repetition, or even CPTSD. If you've been dealing with PTSD or you feel might be complex PTSD, please check out my latest video on both. I think they were uploaded a few weeks ago, so they're kind of in the most recent videos. We can put a link up here later on too as well to link those videos. But definitely, when we have all this going on, making those challenging decisions and having that clarity is extremely challenging. Okay, so let's go to comparison now. Because I think this is one of the ones that, you know, you can try to work on the guilt, and you can try to work on the shame, and you can try to work on the fear. but yet you're working at something. Let's say like you're trying to buy a house, or looking at buying a car because your car is acting up, or you're looking to get another job, or what have you. Maybe starting a family, maybe thinking about, starting a family, maybe actually exiting and in the middle of a divorce. There's a lot of things that can happen in our life, right? We can lose a job, we can lose a house. There's a lot of things that we go through that we have to deal with. And so a lot of times when we're going through massive changes, or we're trying to make changes, or we're trying to create something in our life, we look at what everybody else is doing. We start contemplating what other people are doing. We're looking at where they are in their life. And then we begin to judge ourselves based on what we see as their reality. I'm not going to sit there and lie and say, oh, those people, they really don't have any money, or they don't really. I'm sure a lot of people, when you're comparing yourself, at least from the outside, you can see some sort of financial deal. You see what they drive. Now, we don't know what their financials look like, but it appears to be maybe more wealthy as far as financially concerned than you. Maybe the family dynamic, that you start comparing yourself to other people that already have the family, and they have the children, and you want the children, and you want the family, and you don't have that. And so you compare your life to theirs, and you feel very empty because you don't have what appears that they have, right? And they might as well have that, or they might not, but it appears that they have stuff that we would like to have. And so that comparison, I believe, on a very small level, it can help you to go after your goals sometimes. But if it's too much comparison, you get so caught up in your mindset on comparing yourself, and you get so overwhelmed about the perceived differences, that it's hard for you to continue to do what you need to do. And it's hard to be happy, or to find the goodness or the value in your life. And that's what I think is such a big deal. That's what I think is such a beatdown. Because that comparison is what can take us right out of doing what we need to do, because we feel like we're already behind the 8 ball. We feel like we've already given up, or we've already lost out, or we're too old, or we're not wealthy enough, or we're not smart enough, or we're not lucky enough, or whatever it is. We begin to compare, and then we just say, you know what, I might as well not even do that. And we begin to lose sight of who we are and what we can bring to the table, because we start comparing ourselves, and we begin to compare ourselves right out of living. And so I know I did a show a while back on the radio on Live Your True Life Perspectives, the nationally syndicated show. And I talked about comparison, and it was interesting that people were commenting. This was on Facebook Live and a couple other things, because they don't have it on some of it. So some of you are watching on Facebook Live, some of you are watching on YouTube, some of you are watching on other platforms. However, at the station, we don't have an ability to go to YouTube Live. But on Facebook we did, and it was interesting how some people were saying, oh, I don't compare myself with anybody. I never compare myself. And I was like, wow, I mean, you're like 1 in a million. And I know some of you out there might say, well, I never compare myself. And that's awesome. And that's, you are really a remarkable individual, because it's extremely hard not to, especially on our planet today. Because I want you to think about it. We have Instagram, social media, right? We have selfies all the time. We have even places around towns and around the country that actually have places to take selfies at all over the world. I mean, think about how comparing our life is. I mean, social media is really about that to some level with certain people. And I know that and you have friends that are constantly taking pictures of themselves all the time, every day, all day, and the latest outfit, the latest clothes, most expensive car, expensive shoes, and you're watching that, right? And you begin to compare your life to theirs about how you don't have X, Y, Z, or what have you. And so I want us to really think about that, because in the next segment, I'm going to talk about how to slow down that mind chaos, right? How to slow it down. Because it takes a little while to stop, but I'm going to talk about how to slow it down. I'm going to give you some tools and techniques to do that. And then if there are any questions later, I'll answer those as well. So stay tuned. Ashley Berges, will be back in just 2 shakes.
Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you.
How do you connect with yourself every day? How do you sit there and go, okay, I'm playing this role today, or I'm doing this, but how do I really stay How do I stay centered?
Yeah. Funny you say like playing characters. I think the key to finding a character is to understand who you are within the character.
Good.
So you're kind of forced to connect with yourself when you explore a character. You're like, well, what is it about me that exists? What is it about the character that exists in me? So when you travel that line, you have to introduce yourself to those aspects, whatever they may be, whether it's like the crazed lunatic or whether it's, the doting lover or whatever. Like, how do you find that within yourself? And so you constantly reconnect. I think acting is a real exercise in reconnecting with oneself.
Welcome back, guys. Ashley Berges here, and so glad to be back. And today we've been talking about guilt, shame, fear, comparison, that holy moly mind chaos BS that we go through that gets in the way of us making decisions, gets in the way of us being happy, gets in the way of us choosing wisely, and gets in the way of us just living our true life. Okay? So this is the thing that we're dealing with here. Guilt, shame, fear, and comparison. And I just talked about in the last segment about comparing ourselves to other people and how we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people's lives, other people, what they look like if they have in the outside world, whether it's an amazing family, it looks like an amazing marriage, or it looks like some amazing kids, or amazing family dynamic, or it looks like they had the best parents, or it looks like they have a lot of money, or they have the best job, or the best career, or whatever it looks like, right? It's something that we want, that we feel that we don't have, and we feel that they have it, and we compare ourselves to the point of pain. Okay, and so a lot of us are there. So what do we do to kind of slow down this chaos? Because I really want you to think about it. Like, remember, like, the mind, when it's going a mile a minute, is running your life. And I want you to know the difference between your mind and you. Okay, there is a difference. You are not your mind. Your mind is part of your body. Okay, but you are not the mind. You are you, right? You have access to your heart. You have access to every organ you have, your mind, right? But we aren't just our mind. And a lot of our world is intended on, telling us how our mind is this and mind is that, and being smarter and being this. But it's about focusing on who we are and getting right with where we are right now. And so I want to talk about the mindfulness versus the thinking mind. In the thinking mind, we're constantly thinking, we're constantly processing, we're constantly weirding out and worrying and fear-based on what's going to happen, what's not going to happen, why did this not happen, why did this not work for me, and the list goes on. And so what we have to begin to do as far as tools and techniques is to begin to recognize when you're beginning to feel and think negative thoughts about self. Okay? And it's not hard, right? I mean, I think most of us know when we're not feeling great about ourselves. I think most of us know when we feel guilt or shame. And I think most of us know when we're making bad decisions. And I think most of us know when we're feeling really bad about ourselves. So, okay, so I want you to do this. I want you to begin to really start trying to be mindful. And what I mean by that is right now, you're probably watching this video. But while you're watching this video, you're probably thinking about other things. You might even be thinking about the guilt that you're having right now. You might be going into an old thought process of what happened yesterday, or what happened 5 years ago, or the fear that you're having in the future, the fear that you're going to have if something takes place. And so we're not really paying attention to the video, kind of are, but we're kind of in this other realm. Think about when you're at work, and instead of working on whatever you're doing, you're focusing on the mind chatter. You're focusing on what happened the other day. You're focusing on the fight that you had, the verbal argument on the phone. You're focusing on, something that was rude that was said by somebody. You're focusing on the interpretation of a text message. You're focusing on, how somebody ghosted or blew you off. You're focusing on, you see what I'm saying? We're focusing on the shit. And the crap gets in the way of us living our life. So what do we have to do? We have to slow it down. So how do we begin to do it? You can't just sit there and say, slow down my thoughts, mind. I'm tired of this mind. I want to just do my own thing, and I don't want to think about it. No. We have to train it like exercise to stop doing this. And so how do we begin to train it? Well, we begin by focusing on what we're doing in the moment. So if we're driving the car, or you're watching this video, let's say you're watching this video and you keep having thoughts about things that have happened, you keep feeling guilty about something, you feel shame for something else, you feel comparing. Okay, I want you to refocus and say, hey, wait a second, I'm watching this video. And I want you to keep refocusing. Like, let's say, like some of you do yoga, right? Some of you don't. But some of you do. And you know what yoga's purpose is to quiet the mind, right? And they do all those yoga poses like so fast because they're trying to get you to like just shut the mind down and just go crazy, and upward facing dog, downward facing dog, cobra, mini cobra, baby cobra, all that stuff. And you're like, holy crap. But they're doing it so that, and I don't do it that often. I mean, I know I've done it and I like it. I actually did it a couple of times this weekend for the first time in a long time. And it was actually nice, and I got some really nice stretching out of it. But the point is to get you to stop thinking and to get you to be doing and being in the process. So one of the things that I want you to do is start focusing in on what's happening right now. So if you're watching this video and you're cleaning off the dishes from dinner, I want you to focus on the video and the dishes, nothing else. Okay, after this video, if you decide that you're going to make dinner, I want you to focus on making the dinner. So every time you're in the process of making dinner and you start thinking about something bad that happened, or you start thinking about some fear that you have, I want you to literally say, wait a second, I'm making dinner. And I want you to refocus the mind on the activity at hand. I mean, when was the last time you started reading a book before you're going to bed and all you can think about is all the stuff that went down that day or all the problems and issues that day, right? That's not good. That's not quality. That's not a quality time because you're not reading anything in that book. And if you are, how many times are you having to read it? 6 times over and over again to try to get that 7 pages? So I want you to really focus on the activity at hand. And I want you to start journaling and being aware of when you do go into this real guilt, shame, fear, comparison feeling. Is there a specific theme? Is there a specific situation? Is there something that rotates around it that's specific? So I want you to think about that. Okay, many of you out there are not living the U.S. Census life, right? You're not married with 2 children, 2.5 children, right? It wasn't at 2.5 on the 2.5 kids with a Volvo, right? We're not, okay. And that's okay. I hope you're not. I hope you're doing your thing. I hope you're unique. I hope you're doing what you want to do. But you see where this, okay, even if you are unique, and then you have people saying, well, why aren't you married? Or why don't you have kids? Or why don't you have this? Or why aren't you doing this? And it's hard to start answering those questions, and you start feeling like weird, and you start feeling shame. Well, I guess maybe I should have been married. Maybe I should have kids. Now you start comparing yourselves to the people around you, and you see the people across the street got 3 kids, and that buddy over there has got 2 kids, and oh man, they just bought a new Volvo, and look, their marriage looks great. I don't have any of this. You see how this goes? And that's just from a general norm, from a consensus in this country. From the Census Bureau. Everybody's got so many kids and da-da-da. Okay, think about that. That's how this snowballs. That's how it happens. Like the example I gave earlier, you've always been there for everybody else. You've always been there, and you always put yourself on the back burner, and you never take care of yourself. The time when you finally decide to do that, you're going to feel a lot of guilt for not helping the other person. You're going to feel shame for not being the person that you should be, not being the saint that you are. You feel shame, you feel bad, you feel horrible. And then you fear, oh God, what's going to happen next? If I'm feeling all this, then I'm fearing the outcome. I'm fearing what's going to happen to me. Maybe something bad's going to happen to me. Maybe I'm going to, maybe something bad's going to go down because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Do you see what I'm saying? All these things lead us to making decisions that are not to our highest good. And so the only way is to start journaling and focusing. Is there certain subject matters that make you feel guilt, shame, fear, and comparison? And start writing those down. Start taking a tally of these things and start being able to recognize what they are so that we can get into it and really dig into the issue to begin to understand it so that you can eventually begin to let it go and grow from that. We can't grow when we're stuck in denying who we are. Because you comparing yourself to other people or feeling bad about not doing something that you didn't need to be doing anyway is denying who you are, putting yourself on the back burner, and making poor choices for yourself. And I call that self-sabotaging behavior. even if you were trained on that behavior from a young child, still self-sabotaging. Unfortunately, you don't know it really is because you've done it long enough. And you've done it for so long, you don't see the problem with it. I know. So that's what we're talking about. That's what we need to talk about. That is the key. So I want you to start journaling on that. And I want you to really focus. So when you're making dinner, focus on making dinner. If you're driving the car, focus on driving the car. You should be focused on that. Focus on getting from point A to point B. And every time you start thinking about something else, I want you to refocus on the driving. I want you to refocus on how it feels to be sitting in the car. I want you to refocus on the speedometer. I want you to refocus on getting to where you need to go at the time that you need to be there. I know that sounds simple, but it takes work to say, okay, wait, because you have to catch yourself off. You have to catch yourself with that mind chaos to stop the chaos. If you're not mindful enough to catch it, you can't stop it. That's the key. So I want you to start being super mindful where you catch the chaos in the beginning and you stop it and you get back into what you were doing, and you're probably going to have to recalibrate multiple times in just 1 hour. 1 hour, you might have to recalibrate 8 times, 12 times, 16 times, 20 times. Okay? But it takes work. And sometimes now I can go for even an hour without a thought, which was challenging, but it gets a lot easier. Sometimes it scares the crap out of you that you haven't had a thought. I went through that period of time too, which is interesting because I didn't understand it because I just always had that chaos in my mind. And then when I finally quieted it after doing exactly what I told you, it got better. It got easier. And I got more time without that paranoia, that guilt, that shame, that fear, that comparison. But I want you to think about it. Is it guilt more than shame? Is it fear more for you? Is it shame more for you? Or is it comparing yourselves to other people more for you? And then what is the subject matter about? I want you to write that down, journal that. And I'd love to hear your feedback here on maybe some things that you've learned from that. And also some ideas on what you'd like me to talk about here in this next live show as well. Now I'd like to answer questions. I want to reach out. By the way, thank you. That life is a journey. Let it go. Life is a journey. Let it go. Thank you so much for your support of the channel and the community. It means a lot to me, and I really appreciate you. I'd love to hear how you're doing and a suggestion from you on a topic that's important to you. And thank you so much. A shout out to you. Life is a journey. Let it go for just being extremely supportive. Thank you. I want to thank Brad, by the way. Thanks a lot for the wonderful comment, and I really appreciate that. And then it looks like we have a question from Silverstorm. And Silverstorm asks what?
What if someone who has BPD, PTSD, is not knowing how to feel feelings and instead projects toxic shame on partner? He has paranoia all the time, and I am not trusted and I'm tired.
Okay, so Silverstorm says basically partner has BPD, has paranoia, is putting toxic shame on him, correct? And he's had enough of it. Okay, so, well, I'm glad he had enough of it. I mean, there comes a time when, we can't change, we can't change other people, right? There you go, I said it. All we can do is change ourselves. All we can do is do right by ourselves. All we can do is do the right thing by ourselves, try to do the right thing for ourselves, live the life that we're supposed to live, and either the other people do it or they don't. When someone's not willing to take responsibility for their actions, when somebody is not willing to get help for what is not working for them anymore, we can't change them. The only thing that we can change is our choices, our thought processes, and our actions. Choices, thought processes, and actions. That's it. That's all we can do. So if that's all we can change, you've got to determine how valuable you see your life. You've got to determine, because right now, for you to be in that relationship, there's stuff holding you down, and it's not helping you. And it's not aiding and abetting in your best life, and it's not aiding and abetting in your best and living your true life. And it's putting you down, and he's probably talking to you worse than your absolute worst enemy, and he's definitely not talking to you as a friend. And think about living with that all the time. So it's not only in your head, it's coming out of his mouth. So he's like giving you this toxic shame, and then you're taking it in, and then you're probably reprocessing it in this, what I call that mind chaos. So you're kind of getting it from you and him. So you're having like an internal battle with yourself and an internal battle with them. And unfortunately, they're not going to change if they don't get help, and they're not going to change if you're going to be codependent in this relationship. And you have to be willing to let it go, even though it's going to be painful. You have to be willing to let it go for your own happiness. And you got to think about it. What are you willing to live with? Is this getting in the way of you living your true life? Is this getting in the way of you being in a healthy, happy relationship? Healthy. Healthy. And I know some of us may have never been in a healthy relationship. And so that's challenging. And my heart goes out to you, because I think more of us than not have been in I've been in relationships like that. You know, them unable to process emotion, them putting it all on me, making me feel like I'm going crazy, making me feel like the jerk, making me feel sad and small, and staying in it. And this was a long time ago, but I did it. I've been there. But I had to self-preserve myself. I had to self-preservate myself, and so I preserved myself, and I had to leave. So you got to think about it. You might be in a marriage with this person. You might be a long-term relationship. There might be children involved. There's a lot to this. So there's a lot of components to this. It's more difficult. But you owe it to yourself to decide what's important to you, what are you willing to deal with in your life, and what are you not. And I know that you might say, well, I'm older, or I don't want to leave this relationship. What's going to happen? You got to start living and figuring out what you want to do and what's best for you. And if you're feeling horrible in this relationship and it's beating you down, this is not healthy for you, and this is definitely not right for you. So I'm here for you, so please reach out to me. I mean, I'd love to hear more about the situation and anything I can do to help you as well. So I wish you the best of luck, but I do think you need to start thinking about this and being honest with yourself and journaling and deciding what you want to do, what you're willing to deal with, and what you're willing to make changes. Because sometimes in order for the best thing for us to do is we have to leave a situation to determine if we want to be in it, and we also have to leave it a situation to determine if the other person cares enough to go get help. But also it comes down to it is you've got to care about you. And you've got to love yourself, and if you're in an abusive relationship like this, it doesn't show that you love yourself. I hope that helps. Do we have any other questions?
We do have one more.
Okay.
From Terry Gross. It says, I just came out of a relationship with a BPD. I have lost myself, feel ashamed, and I don't know how to recover.
Okay, Terry, you're not alone. This is normal. It's very normal. It's more normal than you know. It's interesting how also working with my clients, how they've been in these relationships and then the breakup and then feeling horrible and lost and in a blender of emotion. And everybody says, it's okay, get over it, it's okay. But it's not like any other relationship. It's not like any other relationship. It's just not. There's an addictive quality to the relationship that makes it painful to overcome. There's an addictive quality to the relationship that makes it addictive. There's a quality to the relationship that defies reality in the fact that we know it's not good for us. We know it's not working for us. We know it's not the right thing, but we still want to stick in it. And we want to try to work it out again. And we want to try to get heard, and we want to try to be understood, and we want them to understand who we are. We want them to see who we are. We want them to see our value and eventually say, you know what, you're right. And we don't get that, and we hold out for that hope, and we hold out for that, and it's a tragedy. But then there's also parts of the relationship that we are quite addicted to. I understand this very, very, very well. I have extreme clarity in understanding the situation and dynamic. I help people every day, all day, process this, because it's not like a regular breakup. It's shaking you down to your core. And you feel as though you are a shell of a person that will never meet another person on this planet, and you're never going to fall in love again. And I'm here to tell you will, but it takes a lot of work and effort, because we have to find you. We got to find who you are, what you stand for. We got to figure out a lot of things about you to create you on steady, solid ground. And then you can begin to see yourself for who you are, instead of yourself with that relationship or connected or needing that relationship. Because until we find ourselves, we keep thinking about going back because it's what we know. It's also interesting because with these relationships, we're trying so hard to prove our value that we lose sight of the reality of the situation. And when we lose sight of the reality of the situation, we lose sight of ourselves. When we're in those relationships and the love bombing and the pedestal and the devaluation and the discard and all that stuff going on, we begin to change and morph and augment ourselves, our personalities, our attitudes to get them to love us again. And I use the word love in a quotes. It's not real love. And then we start losing ourselves because we start trying to figure out how to get into that mold to get back into the good graces again. Because we think it's a problem with us, not a problem in the relationship or not an issue with them. We don't look at that, right? We always think it's a problem with us. Going back to the guilt, shame, fear, and comparison, chaotic mindset. What does the chaotic mindset say? Oh, it's a problem with me. Okay? And it's not. So, I know you can get over this, but it's going to take a lot of willpower and it's going to take a lot of effort. And you got to start believing in yourself and seeing your personal value. And I look forward to hearing from you as well. So reach out to me and let me know how things are going. This is going to take time and effort, and there's going to be some emotion, but over time you will get past it, but it takes you to do the right things to get past it. Thank you so much for asking the question. I appreciate everybody for tuning in today, tonight, this morning, whatever time it is where you are. Right now it is evening for us. It is, well, it's about 6 something in the evening. And we are about to close up today. Got some more work to do. And, let me know what subject matters you'd like me to cover. Let me know of what live shows that you'd like me to do. I'm always very interested in your feedback and opinion. If you want to reach out to me, go to ashleyberges.com, ashleyberges.com. Click on that contact page, and you can send me a message ASAP. Also, you can go to my email, coachberges@gmail.com, coachberges, Berges, @gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And if you have any questions, please reach out. If you have any thoughts on shows, please reach out. You can also put in the comment section below as well. And we have a live show here on Saturday on the radio, the national show. And we might be doing another live show here on Saturday as well after the live show. And then definitely see you back on Tuesday. Between now and then, there'll be another video upload that will appear. So hopefully you'll be able to check that out. And that will come out Thursday. I just got to figure out exactly what time. But Thursday, as usual. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. And I'm just glad that we are in a community here, a family that helps each other. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Have a great night, morning, afternoon. And don't forget to live your true life.